All right, welcome back. We are in Khan Academy on Algebra 1, and the unit is quadratic functions and equations. The skill we're at is solve equations using structure. This problem says find one value of x that is a solution to this equation. Okay, so we could start by expanding 2x plus 3 squared, so that's 2x plus 3 times 2x plus 3. And then we could use the distributive property here. We could combine like terms and we end up with a polynomial that we can solve for x in. That'd be fine, but there's a faster way. Since we notice that 2x plus 3 happens in this equation in more than one spot, we can make a substitution. We can claim powerfully that a variable equals whatever we want it to, so let's do that. Let's say a equals 2x plus 3, and substitute. Here's a, and here's a, so we get a squared minus 4a minus 12 equals 0. Now we can check and see if this is factorable into two binomials, so we get a binomial times a binomial equals 0. First term has to equal a squared, so something times something equals a squared. Well, that'll be a and a. A times a is a squared. We need a sign here and here. We need signs that give us a negative product. The only way to get a negative product from multiplying two numbers is to have one of the numbers be negative and the other positive. So we'll say a plus something times a minus something. Now those numbers, the product has to equal negative 12 and the sum has to equal negative 4. So, and when we add a positive and a negative, really we're going to do some subtraction. So another way to say this is our product has to be negative 12 and the difference between the absolute values has to be negative 4. So what are our options? We can write factors of 12 are 12 and 1, 6 and 2, 4 and 3. So any of those sets will work for the product, but the difference between the two numbers has to equal negative 4. This one has that. 2 minus 6 is negative 4, so I'm going to put positive 2 and negative 6, and that'll give me this. So a times a is a squared, 2a minus 6a is negative 4a, and 2 times negative 6 is negative 12. Now I can solve for a. So in order to make this product equal 0, one of the factors at least has to equal 0. So in this case, a would equal negative 2. That would make this factor 0. Or a could equal 6. Alright, so that's fine. We got a solution to this equation, but remember they want us to solve for x. Well, we come back over here and look. We know what a is. A equals 2x plus 3. So let's replace a, or substitute one of these numbers for a. I would pick the positive one just to make things simpler for myself to calculate. So then we will have 6 equals 2x plus 3, and we can solve that equation. Subtract 3 from both sides and we get 3 equals 2x. Divide by 2 and we get 3 halves equals x. And we're done with that one. As soon as it lets me put my answer in. 3 halves. They only asked for one of the solutions. To be clear, this has more than one solution, but since they only asked us for one, we just got to pick whichever one we wanted. Alright, next problem. This time, they tell us, they declare a variable m equals x squared plus 3. So we're going to look in this equation for x squared plus 3, which we see here, and replace it with m, substitute. And then we want to answer this we have to make an equation that's equivalent to that in terms of m. We need to have a new equation that does not have any x's in it, but only has m's. Okay, m is a function of x, so we can make substitutions. Here we go. So we'll say, here's m, right there. So we can say m squared, that's this expression, plus 7x squared plus 21 equals negative 10 inches, okay? Oh, not inches. That's in the sentence. They didn't give us units. All right, so problem is, I still have x's here, and I don't have x squared plus 3 sitting there obviously like it was here, so we need to look at this expression and see if we can replace it with something that involves x squared plus 3. So let's see what happens if we factor out the greatest common factor. All right, so we get m squared. What's the greatest common factor of 7x squared and 21? 7. So we'll say 7 times x squared plus 3. 7 times x squared is 7x squared. 7 times 3 is 21. So that's looking good because, once again, we have m sitting right here, something equivalent to m. So we can substitute. Now we get m squared plus 7 times m equals negative 10. And I notice when they tell us to choose one answer, actually all their answers have zeros here. So we need to move the 10 to the other side of the equation. That will be done by addition. So we get m squared plus 7m plus 10 equals 0. That's the answer we're going to look for. M squared plus 7m plus 10 equals 0. That's A. But just to be clear, they gave us these 4 choices, and all of them were equal to 0. This is the one we got. And we're done.